Hello people, you're welcome to ProUp Masterclass. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi, and in today's class I'm going to be talking to you about how to align your ideology with your reality. And this is something that was inspired by a question that someone in my mentoring club asked me. Now, I'll start out by trying to simply define the term ideology and the term reality. Now, ideology is simply put, very simply put, this is a very basic definition of what I call ideology. Ideology is the world in your head. The world in your head. Reality is the world around you. That is the world outside your head. Now, we all have these two worlds, every single human being. There's a world in your head, and then there's a world around you. The world in your head is intangible. The world around you is pretty much tangible. Now, a lot of people see ideology as how the world should be. How the world should be. So for a lot of people, the world in their head is normally, in their opinion, how the world should be. And they see reality as how the world is. So the world outside your head is how the world really is. Now, when your ideology doesn't match your reality, when your ideology is not in sync, is not in harmony with your reality, something called frustration happens. Frustration and disappointment happens when your ideology doesn't match your reality. The world in your head doesn't match the world around you. There's something called frustration, disappointment, sadness. That's what happens. And the greater disparity between the world in your head and the world around you, the greater your frustration, the greater your disappointment, the greater your sadness. Now, when your ideology is in harmony with your reality, that is the way the world should be in your head, and the way the world is in harmony, there is something called peace and there is something called happiness that happens. The more harmony there is between the world in your head and the world in reality, the happier and the more peaceful you are. Now, there's one thing I've realized. A lot of people have their ideology not matching with their reality. And that's why out there you have a lot of frustrated, angry, sad, disappointed people. Very few people have the world in their head aligning with the world around them. And this doesn't have anything to do with whether you have the means. It has nothing to do with how much you earn. Nothing. Has nothing to do with that. Sometimes you see the richest of rich people. You understand? They are still unhappy. They are still frustrated. Because the world in their head continues to change and evolve, and always the world around them is always playing catch up to the world in their head. So you might see them on the outside as living in luxury, but in their head, they are like 10 times ahead of their reality. So they never get to accept their reality. And then you have people who do not have all the means, you understand? They struggle for the means, but they seem to be happy and peaceful. In fact, they are happy and peaceful because in their head, the world in their head matches the world around them. So they have come to accept and accommodate. They have made accommodation for the fallen world. You understand? So they're not living in a fairy tale. They've accepted that life is hard, life can be complex, disappointments happen, sometimes you fail, and that is what happens in their reality, so they're always at peace. So, you see, the problem with ideology and reality is because a lot of times when we build up our ideology, we pick out all the things we don't want and leave only the things we want. So it's almost like picking beans. When you're picking beans, you pick out all the stones and stuff like that so that it becomes edible to you. The same thing we do with our ideology. The world we build in our head is always one without flaws. But the truth is that the world around us always makes room for flaws and disappointments. So the problem is not the hardship in the world or the disappointment in the world or the wickedness in the world. The problem is that you did not make any accommodation for it in your mind. And that's why people end up being sad and frustrated, because their ideology doesn't match their reality. And the thing with ideology, what I realized from talking with a lot of people, is that where we take our ideology from is very important. It's very important. Where we where where we build our that world in our head, where we get the bricks and mortar from, is very important. And the sad thing is that a lot of people get their brick and mortar from other people's lives that they think is ideal. So we get our brick and mortar for the world in our head by looking at other people's life, which has been well curated, well edited, and presented to us. So I'll put it this way. Someone's view on marriage, the world they build in their head, a young man, a young girl, unmarried, maybe a teenager, just looking to marry one day in the future, looks at their neighbor, you understand, and sees their neighbor go to church every day in a very nice car, a man, a woman, they look so good together, going to church, on a Sunday, not just every day, but church on a Sunday. See them going to church on a Sunday with their two children, a boy and a girl, happily holding hands, entering the car and going, and she sees them come back from church and going to their house. On the Monday, she sees them go off to work, the boy and the girl in their nice, cute little uniform, the woman, nicely dressed, the man dressed to go to work, and they go in their car and they drive off and they come back in the evening. And that child seems, that is what a good marriage it should be. Everything I see, the nicely dressed couple going off in their car and coming back in the evening holding hands. So they built that ideology, how marriage should be. And then they get married. And then they realize that, sometimes in marriage there's conflict, there are arguments, sometimes kids misbehave, kids do naughty things, there's punishment for kids, and then they kind of feel, this is not what I thought marriage should be in my head. This is not marriage, so my marriage must be bad, because what's in my head, my neighbor that I saw years ago happily going into their car, is not what's happening in reality. But what they really didn't see was what happened when the neighbor gets into that house, or what happened when the neighbor gets into that car. Do you understand? So we base our ideology on a glimpse of somebody else's reality. So we assume that that's that person's reality based on those few seconds that we see. Today is even worse because we have social media. So we base our ideology on what a good life is on a photo, on a 3-minute video, on a reel. You understand? And then we begin to get frustrated with our life. That's the problem of frustration, when ideology doesn't match reality, and when personal ideologies, are based on what we see. Not a total story, but a very small fraction of a story that we see that we like. And we take that fraction and we build a mansion. We build a world in our head that doesn't align with our reality. It's hardly ever going to align. It wouldn't. That's the issue. And it's so easy. And that's why I'm going to say one thing you must do if you want your ideology to match your reality and to be happy. If you want to be happy, and that's by making your ideology match your reality, world in your head should match the world around you. One thing you have to do is be sure of where you get your bricks from. And let your bricks be telling an authentic story. You must be sure where you get those bricks from that are used to build that world in your head. And let the bricks be telling an authentic story. Do your due diligence to know what the authentic story is. Another thing you must think about when you are trying to build personal ideologies is you must be able to self-assess. You must be able to self-assess your reality before you start picking up ideologies from other people. And this is what I mean. And I see this happens a lot in African culture, in the modern day African culture. You see, with Africa, Africa is a continent that's seeking identity. Now, modern day Africa, we are either seeking identity from the West or seeking identity from the East. Africa is torn in the middle. We are leaning a lot towards the West because a lot of our information, education, entertainment comes from the West. What we consume every day, social media platforms, they're all Western companies. The TV stations we watch, Western. The magazines we read, Western. The music we listen to, Western. So we are leaning towards the Western culture a lot, and that's a form of frustration for us, even as Africans. And this is what I'm trying to say here. This is where the ideology and reality gets muddled up, because we are always tuned in to Western content. We get frustrated with our reality very easily, and it's not really like our reality is bad, but the stark difference between our reality and the ideologies we are picking up from the Western reality, those bricks that we're picking up from there, the difference is too much. So we get frustrated with our reality and we curse our reality for that reason. So when you look at people trying to adopt like a weight loss diet, for instance, and then you are looking at a nutritionist recommending from somewhere in the US or Canada or the UK, and the person says, okay, eat 2 slices of bread every day. A lot of people just take that information. Okay, I'll eat 2 slices of bread, without any idea of what the grammage of bread, a slice of bread, is there. Then you eat 2 slices of bread and it seems like if you've not eaten anything. And that person eats 2 slices of bread and that should give you enough energy. But the problem is your bakeries here are trying to save on flour and milk and sugar and stuff like that. So the slice of bread here is thinner, way thinner than the slice of bread there. So when you eat 2 slices of bread, you find yourself still very hungry at the end of the day. And like, how do these people do it? Then you're frustrated with your body. I'm not saying, oh man, I must have a really terrible, bad metabolism because this person said 2 slices and I'm still hungry. But then you haven't checked your reality with that ideology that you're taking up from another world entirely. When the nutritionist there tells you, okay, cut out this food and replace it with this. And you start thinking, oh, take a cup full of blueberries. And you're in Nigeria. I know blueberries don't grow around here. In fact, for you to get blueberries, you need to go to an expensive supermarket because blueberries have to be imported. They don't grow here. So you go to an expensive supermarket where you spend thousands of naira buying a pack of like 20 blueberries. And by the time you go to the US, you realize that about 100 blueberries cost a few dollars. Then you are frustrated with Nigeria. Oh, things are just so expensive here. So expensive to get basic things. Just blueberries, 1,000 naira. 5,000, no, 1,000 naira is too small. 5,000 naira for 10 blueberries. Look at what they're saying there. It's like $10 for 100 and stuff like that. In fact, you just go outside your house and you just pick it up. Nigeria is just a terrible, terrible environment, terrible vegetation. But that's not true. It's your ideology that is the problem. You are picking up an ideology from a world that is not your world. And you're building a world in your head that will never match the world around you. It's a big problem. That's the problem with Western content. Western content builds in a lot of people's minds what romance should be like. They tell you how romance should go. That doesn't match our culture. So Western content tells you, oh, you go on a date, first date, you go with a girl, first date, you drop the girl at home, you exchange a kiss, and then you try to do that with a girl in Nigeria, and because of culture and her training, she doesn't exchange a kiss with you. And then you get frustrated with, oh, she's so uptight. Nigerian girls are not this, they're not that. The same thing too, Nigerian girls have about men here. You understand? So kind of believe, oh, there should be this body type, you understand, tall, dark, handsome, this, he should be saying this, come with roses, you understand, when it comes to pick me up. But are roses as available here as they are there? Are they as cheap here as they are there? You understand? So we build up this world in our head that doesn't match our reality, and we get frustrated with the reality. But the problem is the ideology, where you're getting your bricks from. Where you're getting your bricks from. That's the problem. The same thing with parenting and kids. I overheard some parents talking about how Nigerian kids can be so lazy and their counterparts in the US move out of the house at 18. A kid should have nothing to do in the house at 18. And like, oh, my kid he's 20, 25, he's still at home. 28, she's still at home. They're mates in the US. That's a Western ideology. Because you got to look at what the economic situation here is, and if it helps to liberate the child at 18. If there are safety nets for an 18-year-old that leaves the house in Nigeria here without becoming a vagabond or a criminal. Do you understand? What are the accommodation facilities? Because there, when you pay for rent, you can pay for rent weekly. But here, you pay for rent and the landlord wants 2 years rent in advance. Can an 18-year-old with a job pay 2 years rent in advance? But then, a child that is 25-year-old living in their parents, even the child feels like, I should have moved out because my friend in the US is living in his own apartment right now. So there's frustration, and that's where depression comes from. The parents feel, oh, my child is too old living with me. So the expectation of the child is very high, and they feel the child is underachieving. But the ideology doesn't match the reality. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. And it happens everywhere. Everywhere, Western ideologies, Western content making us form our ideologies. Here, with our reality, they tell you go for your walk early hours in the morning, late at night in the evening. Can you do that here? Walk in the woods? Do you have woods here? Are the woods the kind of place where you can walk here? Because what you call woods there might be forest here. You understand? And those are not developed for you to walk in unless you're a hunter. Then you get frustrated. So what do we do? The truth is, we must always have the maturity to check our reality before forming any personal ideologies. Check your reality and check if the content you are consuming aligns with or can be adopted in your reality. Is the story they are telling a genuine story? And what I mean by a genuine story is the story that your reality can absorb and you can adopt in your reality. It's in reality that there is empathy. In accepting reality is where we find empathy. There is no empathy in ideology. And what I mean is, you must have a sense of self-empathy. And I'll try to explain what that means. What I mean by self-empathy is you must look at your life and what your life can accommodate and build your activity around what your life can accommodate. So there are a lot of people without self-empathy, and you even see it with how they schedule. And a lot of people have the schedule ideologically. So they say, oh, today I'm going to do this, I'm going to wash the car, I'm going to read 5 books, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to walk the dog, I'm going to cook dinner, and they cramp their day with a lot of activities which they feel they should get done that day. The first thing you should always check is how many free hours you have in a day. How many free hours you have in a day? A huge sign of a lack of self-empathy is when people plan without considering how many hours they've been given by God for each day. And then at the end of the day, they get frustrated. They look at their lives and they're like, oh man, I didn't achieve anything today. I had 20 things on the list, I only achieved 3. And they're like, I'm such a lazy person. Terribly lazy. I must be a lazy person. 20 things and only 3. That's a failure. The first thing is you didn't think of how many free hours you have. So you didn't think of that day that you would sleep. You didn't think of that day that you have to use the toilet. You didn't think of that day that you would get tired from some activity and scheduling rest. So there is no self-empathy. And where there is no self-empathy, ideology will always frustrate reality. Because reality makes room for weaknesses, for downtime, for lags. So you see people don't schedule in, just think, they don't schedule in factors that apply. They don't schedule in, I'm in an environment where electricity is poor. I might go home and there is no electricity. You understand? So they don't schedule, I'm going to go home, I'm going to watch this series. I'm going to go home, I'm going to iron all my clothes. But then you know that you live in an environment where there's no electricity. So you go home, you built up such an ideological expression of your day that is so rigid. And then you go home, there's no electricity, and then you are so disappointed with your day, so frustrated. And that's what stacks up into depression in people's lives because they feel they are underachieving. The truth of the matter is a mature person has self-empathy. And self-empathy is accepting. You must accept those things, those flaws in your reality. A lot of them might not be caused by you, but you must accommodate them and say, I live in this environment and I must build my world around this environment. That's my reality. That's my reality. You see, for me to record this podcast, I realize I have to either wake up very early in the morning or do it very late at night. And why? Because where I live, there are guys that move around with wheelbarrows trying to pick up people's trash. And they're there always calling that they are around. And that can be very frustrating. And initially, I used to be very frustrated by it. Highly frustrated. What kind of terrible environment is this? I hate this environment. You see people record their podcast and nothing happens. And I realized I was having no self-empathy. They were doing their job. As a matter of fact, they were making life easier for me. They were like waste disposal. However, you see, I had to build my reality, my ideology around that reality and accommodate these guys. And I had to look at what time do they come around. If they come around that time, okay, I need to be up earlier than that, or I need to do it when they've closed. Frustration and lack of self-empathy is feeling like they should just disappear to allow me do my podcast. That's a lack of empathy for myself. And that's giving myself very little wiggle room to live in my reality. And that's what a lot of us do. We get frustrated and expect the situation to change. But we are the ones that must adjust ourselves to suit our situation per time. And wildlife understands this. That's why you wouldn't see a lion in the Arctic. It's not built for that. The reality of its personal features, not built for that. You wouldn't see a vulture in the Arctic. They're not built for that. You wouldn't see a polar bear in the Amazon. They're not built. No, their reality of their physical makeup doesn't work in that environment. They know that will kill them. But humans always strive for what they are not built for, or what their reality doesn't encourage. So the secret is to always assess your reality, even as a professional. And that's why when I watch content about my profession, I always check who is talking. And there's a lot of content out there that might be good. It sounds good. But then you must be able to take it and weigh it against what's happening in your environment. When a content creator says, oh, approach your clients this way, approach projects this way, work this way, you must think, does this person understand the world around me before I start building a world in my head based on the world around them? That's what we must do. When you read books, the same thing we must do. And that's the problem with our educational system. It's based on a curriculum that doesn't fit us, the African reality. And that's why there's always frustration with our educational systems. You must adapt that which aligns with your reality at all times. So if you are a brand, you are a professional, you must seek out mentors who live in your reality as much as possible, as close to your reality as possible. Those become your mentors. Those people become your teachers. Then you don't get frustrated. So a lot of us have problem professionally because we've taken up realities by mentors or ideologies by mentors that are far away from us, living in a different economy, a different environment, a different climate. That's the problem. You must do your due diligence to find your true mentors, your true teachers that understand your reality. And those help you to get better bricks to build a world in your head. And then you have more peace and more happiness in your life. And also for the mentors, for the professionals, for the experts, we must also learn to advise people based on our reality, not based on our ideology. That happens every single place. So if you're a nutritionist, don't advise people on something you read on a textbook that was written in Sweden to tell people what to read. And my mother-in-law went for a checkup once, and she was advised by a nutritionist to tell her, don't eat this, don't eat this, don't eat this. And then she came to my wife and said, this woman just said I shouldn't eat anything because there was nothing that she was recommending that was available to me. So as a nutritionist, you must have some more empathy for your clients and say, that is what this person has written in Sweden. What can I write for the Nigerian audience? Should I tell them to cut out, or should I advocate portion control? Because if I cut out, this person will probably not eat anything. So you must say, oh, the truth is, this thing, according to the Swedish people, you shouldn't eat it. But here in Nigeria, I'll just say, adjust your portion. Because this is what we have. Or replace some of the things that they are saying in textbook that is not available here with things that are available here. So they are saying blackberries here. You might say agbalumo in Nigeria because that's available. That's how you show empathy for your clients. As an expert, maybe as a graphic designer, as a cybersecurity expert, as whatever it is you are, you want to advise somebody coming. You don't advise them about what you watched in a video that tells you what you have to do to be a good graphic designer or cybersecurity expert or a good whatever expert in technology. You must advise them based on what your reality is. How did you get it and what are you dealing with? And advise them based on that. Advise them based on your true story. That's why when I talk to people and I make content for designers, my content is always based on what I have gone through as a unique individual based in Nigeria. Not based on what I've heard in an American podcast or American YouTube channel. No, I don't think a lot of that sounds good, but it doesn't work here. So you must give people good bricks too, so that they can build worlds in their head that can align with that reality. And that helps them to get peace at the end of the day. So I really hope someone is able to get some insight from this and understand that frustration is the gap between your ideology and your reality. And the truth of the matter is that the more you accept the factors in your reality and allow that help you build a more realistic ideology within your head, the more at peace you would be. A very dangerous ideology to build is an ideology absent of flaws, ideology absent of weaknesses. Once you do that, it can never align with reality. So in whatever ideology you are building, always factor in flaws, always factor in weaknesses. So if somebody is painting an ideology to you that is squeaky clean, you must step back and look at that ideology and say, oh, there must be something edited about this ideology, and if I adopt this ideology, I will be frustrated. Any ideology that is squeaky clean. Align yourself with people who show you ideologies that accommodate, even in that ideological world, flaws. And then you can see how that can best work in your reality. And you see how you live at peace. So I hope this helps you today, and I hope it helps us to build better alignment and better harmony between our ideology, our personal ideologies, and our reality.